All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your first lecture for the first year experience course. I'm really excited for what you're about to receive. But before we get started, I am going to introduce your speaker for today. Make sure during his lecture that you are locked in. Technology should be put away. Each of you should be actively taking notes, participating, asking questions. But now I would like to hand the microphone over to our head men's and women's tennis coach, Mike Salomon, who will be giving you a talk on the Benedictine Hallmark of Discipline. So let's give him a warm round of applause.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you, Nate. We'll go ahead and start with a very, very quick prayer here. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, please bless each of these first-year students in their time at Belmont Abbey. Please help each of us, students, staff, faculty, to be able to grow and live out these hallmarks in what we learn in our daily lives. In your name we pray, amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. All right, so I believe, the first of all of these hallmark talks of the year. There's a really, really, really good lineup of people that will be giving you guys some of the backgrounds and concepts of these different hallmarks throughout the course of this semester and of the year. To be honest with you, when I looked at the lineup, I'm probably the one that doesn't fit. I do not have an incredible resume. I am not a teacher. I do not have a lot of very cool degrees. So hopefully what I can do is share other people's ideas, because I do not have as many of my own. All right, so one of the things we're going to do today in this is there's going to be some videos, there's going to be some content, and a lot of what we're going to be doing is kind of breaking down a couple of things that other people have shared and trying to learn about the hallmark of discipline through that manner. Funny enough, I was prepping for this a little bit. I've been working on this for a while, and I was talking about it with my wife last night as we were kind of just doing a little bit of last-minute prep on our work days. And she did mention to me, she was like, you know what? I think this is probably a hallmark that you would develop, you would benefit from developing a little bit more as well. So I don't come here as someone standing up here who's mastered the things that we're going to talk about a little bit. So I aspire, hopefully like you guys, to be able to grow in these things and do better in these areas too, each and every day. So first off, before we get into the hallmark piece of it, I do have a little exercise for you guys. So if I'm going to introduce myself to you, I have a couple of different options of how I can do that. All right, so the first one, I want you to take like 10 seconds, and I want you to think about hypothetical world, everything works out great for you. 5 years from now, you're in your chosen career field, right? So that could be, I'm a accountant. It could be, I'm a manager of a business. It could be, I'm a doctor. It could be, I'm in medical school. Whatever it is, just take 10 seconds and kind of think about what your chosen career path might be. And if you don't have one, just make one up. So if I'm going to come up and introduce myself to one of you guys, I'm going to be here saying, hey, I'm Mike Salomon, and I'm a college tennis coach. Nice to meet you. So I want you guys to turn to somebody next to you, and I want you to introduce yourselves with that in mind. Talk a little bit about what you do. Right? Introduce yourself. Find somebody next to you. Everybody's got to share something. All right. Now we're going to do a different kind of introduction. We actually have three introductions here. The second one, I want you to introduce yourself a little bit based on your values and the type of relationships that you have. So for me, I've got 4 kids. I have a wife. I'm Catholic, right? So those are some things that I would introduce myself as, but not from what I do for my work, but more of who I am as a person. So I want you guys, and I'm going to give an example on my end, but I want you guys to same thing, take 10, 15 seconds and think about it, and then reintroduce yourself to that person using those different criteria. So for me, I'm Mike Salomon. I'm a Catholic father of 4 and a husband to my wife of 11 years. Okay? So I don't think many of you will have exactly what I have, but hopefully for each of you guys, you can think about what that sounds like here. And then again, reintroduce yourself to the same person both ways. Give you about 20 seconds, so go ahead when you're ready. All right, we can wrap that one up and we'll move on to the third and the final one here. So the last one, introduction-wise, is I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves based on how you do what you do. So a little bit more of character traits as opposed to just relationships. So this, and I'm going to give you guys another like 10, 15 seconds on top of what I already have to think about this one a little bit. Try to think about what you aspire to be. It doesn't have to necessarily be what you're really good at right now. So again, try to put yourself 5 years in the future here and think about, how do I want to do the things that I'm doing? What are the character traits that I want to be able to display? So for me, again, these are aspirational. I'm not saying I do these things all super well all the time, but I would introduce myself. I'm Mike Salomon. I'm someone who tries hard at what I do, and I want others to succeed and go to heaven. Right. Again, aspirational, but that's what I would want to put down. So again, take 10 seconds, think about it, introduce yourself to each other based on character traits as opposed to either relationships or job title. Go ahead when you're ready. All right, I'm going to wrap up on that. So what we're doing right now is I'm just giving a little bit of introduction to the big picture of not only what we're doing here today when we get to the Hallmark of Discipline, but also some of the basics of how we want to be able to engage with your FYE class and your education here at Belmont Abbey. And your education is not just going to be in the classroom, right? It's going to be, for those of you who are student athletes, it's going to be on the court or in the field. Or I guess on the lanes or on the pitch, or I'm trying to think of what I've missed, on the mat. I'm sure I've missed a couple of, anyway, so there's all these different areas that you can have that education. It also is going to be in your spiritual life, right? It's going to be in how you develop those aspects, how you practice your faith. It's going to be in your relationships. It's going to be in emotional maturity. It's all these different elements. So your education here is not only going to be in the classroom. So, actually, show of hands, who here has used ChatGPT or something similar for something at some point? All right, do we have a literal 100%? Has everyone used ChatGPT? I might have missed somebody. Pretty much every single one of you guys has used AI for something, right? So 15 years ago, when I was in college, all right, there's no such thing as ChatGPT. There's none of those different AI tools that you guys have. Now, I was talking with one of my alumni very recently, and he graduated a couple years ago. I'm both the men's and the women's tennis coach, so I have a lot of alumni spread out all around the country. I've been here this is my 12th season here, so I've got lots of people that are kind of coming back and communicating about their experience. But he took a bunch of coding classes at University of North Carolina, Charlotte, while he was a student here, because he wanted to add to his resume. He wanted to add some computer science proficiency, and he wanted to be able to have the technical acumen to be able to be successful at a pretty high level in the business world. So he's gone on to do super well in his first job out of college. But one of the things that he's told me is that what he learned coding-wise, they now just have AI do it, right? So it's not a waste of his time, but someone just replaced the skill set that he added with what he took at UNC Charlotte. And I think, too, if you look at a lot of the different fields and things that you mentioned in, so think back to that first way you introduced yourself, a lot of the things that we do can get replaced, right? And if you're an accountant, right, AI can replace most of the accounting, right? If you're a lawyer, And there's actually kind of a big scandal going on right now in the news. One of the biggest consulting firms that charges millions and millions of dollars to the top corporations, one of their top people used ChatGPT to create their legal documents. And it created false cases that never existed and looped back to things that didn't happen. And there's massive, massive issues from a compliance and legal perspective. But anyway, most of the things that we do in some way, shape, or form, part of what we do can be replaced. And so if you think back to that first way you introduced yourself, like your identity, if I put my identity in for me as a coach, right? Or if I'm an accountant, or if I'm an engineer, or if I'm a doctor, a lot of the things that I do can be replaced. So if my identity is totally in those things, right, I can lose that very quickly when those things get replaced. So that's number one. Number two, when we talked a little bit about in the second way you introduce yourself, your values and your relationships, right? And this is kind of what I would challenge you guys to think about for all of what you're doing educationally and here with FYE and all the different hallmarks that you're going to learn about. Those last two ways you introduce yourself, right? The relationships you have and the virtues that you have, and then how you identify in your personal and spiritual life, that those things are going to be the things that never change. Those are really going to give you your true purpose and your identity with what you do. So much of what we're doing, and Nate, who I think stepped out, I know has been kind of revamping the FYE program here, but everything that you guys do in FYE this year should be focused on developing that identity, helping grow and form you into the person that you're supposed to be and called to be, as opposed to only looking at what is the skill set that I take away when I graduate. It's a different world, right? 20 years ago, if you had the accounting skill is the accounting skill. Now there are other things that matter, and it becomes more and more obvious in the workplace. So I'll kind of leave the intro on that. We're going to go into now a little bit about the hallmarks of discipline here. So I have two things in particular I want to talk about on discipline before we go into the three resources. So most of you should have seen three different things, three short chapters from the Benedictine Rule. A video called Make Your Bed. So it's the University of Texas at Austin commencement speech. That's the one that's up there. We'll not be watching 19 minutes and 26 seconds of that. We'll be watching a couple of very short clips. And then a video on consistency and faithfulness by someone called Father Mike, who I'll talk a little bit more about towards the end. So those are kind of the resources that we're using. And again, my goal with this discipline hallmark discussion is less of to share things that I think are important, more to try to find resources that may connect with you guys and that you can take with you when you leave here. So I know most of you are supposed to be taking notes as well. So for those of you who have that, just a reminder, I think most of you have grades on some of these things too. All right, so little preamble for hallmark of discipline. Number one, so discipline is in and of itself not necessarily always a good thing. Right, it's going to sound a little crazy. How is discipline not always a good thing? So think about, and I'm going to use an example of, let's say, someone doing something terrible. So let's say like a head of a drug cartel, something like that, right? Pretty universally accepted as not a particularly positive job, employment, or lifestyle, morally. You got to be really disciplined to pull all that stuff off. So someone who's directing the discipline that they have towards really bad things can still be disciplined, right? But directing that to good things is something that's really important. So just having the hallmark of the virtue of discipline does not make, right, what you do morally good. So discipline is an accelerant. So think about it like this, and this might be a visual to write down for your notes. Discipline, if you have like a fire in front of you and you got a big old jar of gasoline, right, and you pour that gasoline on the fire is going to go big, right? It's going to blow up. So you kind of have to choose, which fire do I pour it on? Do I pour that discipline on things that are good or things that are not good? Either way, it's going to magnify what that looks like. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, discipline is a lot of times confused with intensity. And I'm going to explain. I'm going to give a couple of stories on this one. So in my own personal experience, when I was in your shoes, your age, kind of sitting in this similar seats years ago, I always thought discipline was basically the equivalent of hard work. So I'll give you an example. So I played tennis, obviously, as a tennis coach, right? I played tennis in college at another university, not Belmont Abbey. But when I was in high school, we had two tennis courts near our house. And my dad used to go out and stand in between the middle of both tennis courts, and he would feed me balls running side to side, not just on one court, but on both courts. And I had to get every ball before it bounced twice. And in my head, I always thought that I was like, well, I'm super disciplined because I'm doing this thing that's really, really hard and really challenging that nobody else is willing to do. The reality was I was working hard and I was very intense, but the discipline aspect of it was different. So I just want to highlight that too. We'll come back to that towards the very, very end. But there's a big difference between discipline and intensity. Discipline is going to be reflected a little bit more in your lifestyle over a long period of time, and intensity is going to be in a little bit shorter bursts. So I'll give one more story on this too. And I have several players, both men's and women's tennis over the years, that have gone through this experience. And some of you, actually probably everyone here has gone through this in some area of their life. But I'll share a couple of just simple stories here. But I've had players that kind of go through ups and downs with motivation and inspiration as athletes, and that's pretty common, right? We all struggle with that. Coaches struggle with that. Teachers struggle with that. Everybody, right? You're going to have ups and downs on inspiration and motivation. But one of the things that I see probably at least once or twice a year is a player who gets this like incredible sense of like, I am going to do everything I can for the next 30 days to be the best that I can be. So they go from like showing up late, kind of like halving most of their workouts, kind of trying in practice, sometimes competing, sometimes not, to looking like the most committed, intense, quality teammate, quality player, but it's for a really short period of time. It's for a burst, right? And eventually what that does is it burns out, because that's not discipline. That's another example of what intensity looks like. I'm going to intensely commit to doing something, as opposed to I'm going to make the way of life, lifestyle, the way in which I do things consistent. So again, if you want to knock down a couple of notes, those are two of the themes that we're trying to get across here, and hopefully some of these examples will help. Let me flip my notes here. Give me 1 second. All right, so now we're going to move on to our resources. The first one, we're going to talk a little bit about the rule of St. Benedict. So chapters 41, 42, and 43, very short, should have taken you, if you read it, less than 3 or 4 minutes to read. And I know you guys have had a lot of stuff through orientation and connections with the different monks here, and being able to, kind of experience a little bit secondhand of what the rule of St. Benedict can look like. But you read through the rule, and chapter 41 is the exact hours for eating and fasting. Chapter 42 is about not talking, and there's a quote: severe punishment if you talk during times you're not supposed to talk. And chapter 43, if you're late to work or you're late to food, you have to do public penance, and you may or may not be forgiven. And you kind of look through all those different things, and you realize that these aren't just things that they're doing for like a week. And again, they have some different applications than they did when the rule was written, and there's some difference. But a lot of these things are pretty much consistent, right, day in and day out, of what are these rules and what are they forming you to be. And so even some of these really difficult challenges, right, we can talk about them in our own lives, and then you just go ahead and look on the other side of campus over there, and you realize the monks here are living out discipline in a way that most of us cannot even comprehend. Like, I'd probably last like 6 minutes living according to the rule. Right? Hopefully it would be longer than that over time, but you never know. So just to kind of keep in perspective of, we have some great examples of these things and these hallmarks here already on campus, and as we're constantly aspiring to master these things and do these things, we're all going to fall short, but the goal is not to perfect them. The goal is to be the best that we can be and grow in these things and apply them to our lives. So moving on, we're going to go into our first video here. So most of you have probably either read the transcript or looked through. Let me check the time block. Are we good to start the first one? So this one will be about 2 minutes, and then at the 2 minute, 10 second mark, you can pause it, and I'll give a couple thoughts, kind of break down the videos from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, thank you, President Powers, Provost Fenves, deans, members of the faculty, family and friends, and most importantly, the class of 2014. It is It is indeed an honor for me to be here tonight. It's been almost 37 years to the day that I graduated from UT. I remember a lot of things about that day. I remember I had a throbbing headache from a party the night before. I remember I had a serious girlfriend who I later married. That's important to remember, by the way. And I remember I was getting commissioned in the Navy that day. But of all the things I remember, I don't have a clue who the commencement speaker was, and I certainly don't remember anything they said. So acknowledging that fact, if I can't make this commencement speech memorable, I will at least try to make it short. So the university's slogan is, what starts here changes the world. Well, I've got to admit, I kind of like it. What starts here changes the world. Tonight there are almost 8,000 students, or there are more than 8,000 students graduated from UT. So that great paragon of analytical rigor, Ask.com, says that the average American will meet 10,000 people in their lifetime. 10,000 people, that's a lot of folks. But if every one of you changed the lives of just 10 people, and each one of those people changed the lives of another 10 people, and another 10, then in 5 generations, 125 years, the class of 2014 will have changed the lives of 800 million people. 800 million people. Think about it. Over twice the population of the United States. Go one more generation, and you can change the entire population of the world. 8 billion people. If you think it's hard to change...
All right, so on each of these, I'm going to give you guys just a quick point or two to take away from the clip. So, points here, and I do have to look at my notes. Can't remember all the things that I had written down. But number one, just to have an idea of the magnitude of the impact that you can have as a human being. Every single one of you guys, right, the impact that you can have, the little things that you do, they matter. And they matter not just today, but they can matter to others, and they can matter over a very long period of time. And I'm actually going to give an example of this one too, before moving on to the next video. And you know, it was interesting. I was a senior at the university that I went to, and one of the freshmen was giving all the thank yous to the seniors at as we had finished up our college career, and the season was over, and had a little team meeting, and I was expecting him to be like, "Wow, Mike, thank you. You're an amazing captain. You did a great job." And he actually kind of gave the opposite feedback. He was like, "You weren't so great, but this other guy over here, the very first day of moving, he came over in my dorm and he hung out for 30 minutes. He never came back over ever again, but that 30 minutes was the most meaningful experience that I had ever had in college, and totally changed the way I perceived everybody on the team." And that actually kind of like inspired me and hit me a little bit at the time, is like the little things and the magnitude of what you do are really important. And I think the point here, right, we'll come back to this at the very end too, is the magnitude of what you do, the little things, can really compound over a long period of time. And you may not even see the impacts of it. It may be even long after you. So again, change the world starts with little things. All right, the next video clip is starting at 3 minutes, 45 seconds. So this one's only about 30 seconds. So number 2.
Will apply equally to all. I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years, but it all began when I left UT for basic SEAL training in Coronado, California. Basic SEAL training is 6 months of long, torturous runs in the soft sand, midnight swims in the cold water off San Diego, obstacle courses, unending calisthenics, days without sleep, and always being cold, wet, and miserable. It is 6 months of being constantly harassed by professionally trained warriors who seek to find the weak of mind and body and eliminate them from ever becoming a Navy SEAL. But the training also seeks to find those students who can lead in an environment of constant stress, chaos, failure, and hardships. To me, basic SEAL training was a lifetime of challenges crammed into 6 months.
All right, so the snippet before, stress, chaos, failure, and hardships, right? A lot of us think about those things as, like, we watch this video, be like, oh yeah, that's what Navy SEALs go through. The reality is to all varying degrees, that's all of us too, right? Those things are universals, whether or not they're packed into 6 months at SEAL training, or whether or not it's your average Thursday. All of those different challenges are in front of you. So again, as he's talking here about a little bit of the lifetime of challenges piece of it, whether you're challenged right now, whether you're called to be here and go through the challenges that you're going through, right, as a student athlete, as a brother, a sister, as a child, whatever it is, that those challenges are going to be something that can help form you into who you are supposed to be. All right. Last one here on this video is 4-minute 40 mark, and this one's about 1.5 minutes.
Training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training.
All right, so you guys are probably all too young, but that quote right there, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed, had its 15 minutes of fame, I guess, in today's world, right? It would have been all over TikTok. But when everything from a speaking tour to a book to all over social media, whatever social media existed in 2014, and really became a huge phenomenon for a very short period of time, right? For about 6 months. So there's a lot more resources on that, and that book is a very short and easy read. I have not read it actually, but I looked at it and I saw it was short and I put it on my list because I thought I could finish it. But something, if you guys want to look into that a little bit more, feel free. I don't think that's a huge time commitment. But just kind of the point of that short video right there, that video clip, is there's a connection between being a Navy SEAL and between making your bed. And that's the point that he's trying to make. And for all of us, again, some of us may be called to be Navy SEALs. Some of us may be called to do other things, right? See what the future holds for each of us. But there's a connection between great at what you do and doing little things well. And do not raise your hand on this one. I'm not here to call anybody out, but if you were to look around this room and ask every single person honestly, like, do you make your bed, detail-oriented every single morning, I'd be willing to bet you that not everybody in the room would raise their hand. And I'm 100% sure that I would not be able to raise my hand on that, right? And there's lots of other areas. So I think just kind of keeping in mind that those little things and those connections can really make an impact on what you do, and not only what you do, but remind you of it and give you the inspiration and motivation to continue doing it in different areas. So discipline as it's applied here, right? Making your bed, those things can help you with very, very wide range of different things, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual. There's all these different categories, right? Kind of talk about that, pouring that gasoline on the fire. How do you apply it to the right things and the right areas of your life in the right categories? Let me look at one more thing here, and then we'll move on to the next video. Sorry, gotta flip pages here. All right, and we'll come. This will be the wrap up at the very end. But one of the things I want you to take away from here, and I would write this down in your notes from that quick 90 seconds: challenge yourself, challenge yourself, challenge yourself, challenge yourself. All right, now we're going to transition a little bit. I don't know, some of you probably are familiar with the guy named Father Mike Schmitz. He has done a podcast. I believe it is the most listened to podcast in the world, and he's become a super famous speaker, and just really, really kind of become a very mainstream person in all areas of media. But I believe the podcast is the most listened to podcast in the world, as I said before. And he also has a lot of really great content in terms of, again, ways you can live your life that's going to be happy, successful, and holy. So we're going to watch the whole video here. It's about 6.5 of the 7 minutes and 15 seconds. So it'll kind of wrap up towards the end, and we'll give a couple recap points there. And then recap here. So from this part of it, feel free to take some notes if you feel like anything really sticks with you and you're really excited about. But he's going to talk a little bit about everything from sports analogies to developing consistency and discipline in your personal and spiritual life, as well as your physical life. So we'll go ahead and cue that one up.
Hi, my name is Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So years ago, I heard a story about Steve Martin. Steve Martin, the actor, comedian, and musician. So when he was starting out as a comedian, as an on-stage performer, and magician, he was really young. In fact, I read his autobiography about his life as a stand-up comic, which is not for children, by the way. So if you are a child, please don't read that. It is inappropriate in many places. But he's telling the story of his life. When he started out, he always wanted to be an on-stage comic, magician, whatever. But he knew that as a comedian who was young, people wouldn't take him seriously unless he could prove to them right away that he knew how to do stuff, right? So he thought, well, what can I do? I can learn a musical instrument, learn something difficult, and then I can showcase that on stage, and people would know, oh, hey, he's not just some kid who just stepped up on stage. He's someone who knows how to do something difficult. So the something difficult that he chose to learn how to do was play the banjo. It's difficult to learn how to play the banjo, though, however, and so he found himself a little bit discouraged at the prospect of learning this musical instrument. He told himself, well, if I practice the banjo 20 minutes a day, every day, which is not too much, 20 minutes, that's it. If I practice the banjo 20 minutes a day, every day, in 20 years, I'll be pretty good at the banjo. That's what he did then. He practiced. And what happens is that it compounds on itself, right? The better and better you get at a thing, the more you want to play it and want to do that thing. And so he ended up not just being okay at the banjo. I think he has now gotten a bunch of Grammys when it comes to his banjo music or his bluegrass music. It's just phenomenal. It's really interesting. And that's what I want to talk about. We think the word faithfulness, we can think of this well, I'm really faithful, which means I have this kind of really religious, churchy kind of aspect about me, which might be the case. But let's be practical. Let's be really concrete. Faithfulness, in so many ways, merely means consistent, right? So actually, another definition or another translation of the word faithful is steadfast. To be steadfast is to be consistent. It means that I do what I say I was going to do, right? So to be consistent is to be faithful. I want to talk about this because let's look at Steve Martin. He was faithful to the banjo, which means he was consistent in his practicing the banjo. And it was that consistency that actually changed him. It made him into someone who was excellent at the thing that he did. And this is the case for every any human being who can do something that you really respect. And what I want to talk about when it comes to your spiritual life, our relationship with the Lord, is the call is, we want to be holy. None of us are going to be perfect, but all of us can be consistent. We show up again and again, day after day, in all circumstances. Because, as we know, it's really easy to show up on the days when I'm feeling good and the days when everything is conspiring to, get me to that place I need to go. Whether it's I've decided to be faithful to reading scripture. I've decided to be faithful to getting to daily mass. I've decided to be faithful to praying the rosary. Whatever that thing is, to be consistent in that, it's easy when it's easy. But we're transformed when we do it regardless of whether we feel like doing it or not. And when it comes to, again, our spiritual life, sometimes we really, really rely on intensity. We really want to rely on passion. But we can't, because it's always going to let us down. Because no one will be transformed deeply when it comes to, especially their spiritual life, if all they rely on is their intensity. Because I will say this before, I'll say it again, I'll say it now. When it comes to almost anything, consistency beats intensity every time. When it comes to almost anything you want to get excellent at, whether it's the banjo or belonging to the Lord, when it comes to praying or when it comes to serving other people, one of the ways we can exercise consistency in such a way that changes us is, I got this from one of our students here at UMD. He played baseball for the university. And he said one of his favorite coaches told all the guys as athletes, he said, okay, the deal is this: you need to become an excellent baseball player, to become excellent at this thing, you need to learn to love the process. It's a long journey to become excellent at anything, a long journey to become excellent at baseball, a long journey to become a saint of God. So I can get discouraged at, like, man, it's taken so long. Yes, but learn to love the process. Well, right now I don't really feel like it. Okay, that's the day you need to show up, because I need to learn to love the process. To be able to practice in any circumstance, in any kind of weather, means I can play in any circumstance and in any kind of weather. If I'm going to be a fair weather Catholic or a fair weather Christian, a fair weather someone who follows the Lord, that means I will only be able to follow him when it's good weather. But if I consistently train myself to show up and be with the Lord in rainy weather, essentially, or when it's difficult, then I'll be able to follow him in rainy weather or whenever it's difficult. Last thing, part of faithfulness, part of consistency is being willing to and able to say yes to the Lord in the darkness. Say yes to the Lord when I don't even feel him. Our tendency, our temptation, is when we find ourselves walking in darkness, we forget what we learned in the light. Right? This is true. So when we're in consolation, when the sun's shining down on us and we know that we're loved by God, it's really easy to believe those things. But then here we are now in a place of darkness, in a place of trial, in a place maybe where we've even done it to ourselves, maybe we've fallen into some kind of sin. And it's really, really tempting to forget in the darkness what we learned in the light. But faithfulness and consistency will make it a habit, a practice, a conviction to remember in the darkness what I learned in the light. That's faithfulness. Imagine praying 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. Imagine what your relationship with the Lord would look like in 20 years from now. Or you could just put it off for 20 years and imagine what your relationship will look like with the Lord in 20 years from now. Either way, the choice is yours. I believe you are called, though, to choose faithfulness, to choose consistency in choosing to spend time with the Lord. For all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name is Father Mike. God bless.
All right, a couple key points, recapping from my side, and then I have a couple of wrap-up points for everyone else. So I'd say we probably got no more than 3 or 4 minutes left overall. So a couple things that stood out to me as I was watching that video. Number one tells the story about the actor Steve Martin learning to play the banjo. Doing 20 minutes of something every day is super impressive. Right? For most of us here in the room, very, very, very few of us have done something consistently every day for a long period of time. Right? We might do it 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but to do something consistently every single day with no exceptions is extremely challenging. Now, just like at the very beginning where you had the Admiral Mark Raven talk, he was talking about compounding, right? If you make an impact on others and the things that you do are meaningful, that those things have a bigger and bigger and bigger impact over time. The same can be said here for the little things that you do, right? So the time and the effort that you dedicate towards what you're doing over a consistent period of time can make a huge compounded, exponential, magnified impact, right? So going out and practicing something for 30 minutes, great. Going out and practicing something for 30 minutes for 3 years changes everything in pursuing being good at it. Number two, one of the quotes, I don't know if this stood out or not, but the idea here was that consistency, right? When we talk about discipline, really the consistency is kind of the root of being disciplined with something over a long period of time. Consistency is what transforms you. So it's not just doing the activities that you do, but it's the ability to consistently do them and stick with them. And that's something that's transformational, right? It's not just skill development, but it actually changes who you are as a person. So I'm sure nobody here just wants to be like terrible at whatever their passions are, right? Whatever you're excited about, whatever you like doing, whether it's, again, personal interest, academic athletics, like nobody here just wants to be bad, Nobody here is like, you know what? I want to show up and I just want to be the worst person on this team, or I want to be the worst person in this organization. Everybody wants to be good at something. You want to be excellent. And so consistency is what transforms that over a long period of time. He mentions as well, just kind of recap the intensity piece of it, right? That intensity eventually burns out. Different than consistency. Consistency beats intensity over a long period of time, every time. And then the final thing, this really has nothing to do with discipline, but I really just liked it from the video and I'm trying to take it to heart for myself. But remember in the darkness what you learned in the light. It's a very, very powerful overall life lesson for when things get tough, to be able to remember what you learned in other situations. All right, so that's the recap of all the different videos here. I do have a quick overview, so if anybody wants the Spark Notes, you're only now starting to check in and paying attention, you're gonna get the recap here. Okay, so number one, what is discipline? Discipline is an accelerant, right? It's not necessarily in and of itself something that's good or bad, but it magnifies what you do and what you choose to do as a lifestyle or character trait. So, not only do you need to develop virtue and the hallmark of discipline, but you also have to figure out what you choose to direct that towards, and choose good things, things that are helpful, things that are going to help you be successful and holy, right? And that can be in many categories: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Tons of application. All right. Number two, how can you develop? And I'm going to try to leave you guys with some concrete things, right? So if you actually want to, other than just doing the assignment, take some of this to heart and try to have this impact like how you do what you do, which everybody